So we're going to start this. So this is a special one-on-one podcast with me, Cappy, that has never done any podcasting before, and Guns.
Hello, hello.
Hello, and so this is all about this one interaction with us together about getting you out. Well, I'll just throw it out right there of a pyramid scheme. This has already been brought up in a previous podcast. I am interested in each other's perspective to be what message I was getting through and what I was reading through you through that day, and more importantly, like what resonated with you the most in what I was saying. Because thankfully it got through you and it is a happy ending.
Yeah, honestly, you kind of saved my life there.
Nice. Um, Alright, so yeah, we are going to go with the triggering post.
The triggering post.
It starts, somebody that day asks you, how, just pinning you, just out of that specific day that apparently was special on your end.
Yeah, that day was interesting because we were during a business trip into another city, because we usually operate out of one city, the city that we live in. But during that week, we had gone to a business conference with other workers in other companies, and we were gonna take that week after the conference to instead of doing door to door, we were gonna do what we called event marketing, which in this case was going to a park, a huge park with a huge lake, for example, in this situation, and just interrupting people, essentially walking by them, interrupting them or what they're doing, and being like, "Oh, hey, by the way, I'm not here to sell you anything or anything like that. I'm actually part of the Nature Conservancy," which was the charity that we were working for at the time. And that day was special because I had been in kind of a rut for about a couple weeks before we went on this business trip, where I wasn't performing well, I wasn't getting donations, I wasn't doing as much as I could have been, or well, in the eyes of the company, I wasn't. And they essentially told me, "Hey, go on this business trip, change up your strategy, and maybe if you perform better like this, we'll put you and the other people who went into a special team that is only going to do event marketing." So I was like, okay, good. It's a chance to, move out of my comfort zone a little bit, to experiment in a different method, and seeing if it goes well for me. After the conference, during the first day of this event marketing thing that we were doing, I managed to get 3 donations during the whole day, which was, at the time, it was my record. So it was a fantastic first day. I was very, very happy with with how I performed that day. And the next day, I got 1 donation within the first hour of us working in the morning. So I decided to take a break, because I said, well, if I'm doing so well right now this early, I might as well take a little break, because I have the whole day past me, so I can afford a little bit of a breather here. After that point, while I was in my break, I received this message by this person asking how had work been doing. And I just started talking, essentially the fact that I was promoted to stage 2, and I was building a crew of people, stuff like that, explaining a little bit about how the business worked with them, because they were not really understanding. A lot of people were intrigued, not a lot of people, but enough people were intrigued that I felt like I needed to explain the business, because at this point, I was still very much captivated by it. I was part of it, and I was very much a advocate for it, because I thought it was effective for me, at least. And since it was my first job, there wasn't anything else that I would compare it to, or that I could compare it to.
On my end, while you're typing, it's already like I'm already asleep, and I get the phone and I'm reading through this backlog. For me, you are somebody that is very creative, that it was trying to find a job for more of like a starting point in a meantime kind of thing. And you were just starting to do those door to doors. I'm like, oh, okay, well, you're down in the south. That sounds weird to do, but maybe that's just a thing that you can do because it's always nice. I don't know. It's always cold up here, but but you just started talking about a lot of what you were talking about just now. It's very like stage 4, building my team and stuff like that, and a lot of hope. And I'm just saying, for me, it just screams like bullshit. I've on my own, it's me personally on my own job. It's very normal. I just normal little customer service for a company. Nobody is offering me a team to build. That does not work. You are getting used, and I don't like this. And I know it is a meme through the server that I'm on, but I keep pushing you through this whole day, and
Yeah.
you right away. I'm just Guns. That sounds like a pyramid scheme, and you get defensive right away.
I did. I really did. I started to, give, oh, but it's not the same because I didn't pay anything. I didn't give anything up front.
You don't. Your perspective on pyramid scheme was like you don't deny they do not exist,
No,
but
of
you're not
course.
in one.
Yeah, that's always the excuse you give, right? Obviously, they exist because you've heard stories, but you clearly don't think you're gonna be in one because you think very highly of yourself, right? You don't think you're gonna fall to one. You you don't think that they're gonna change their game to affect people like you, but they do, and they do it really well.
And an- another keywords for me, they were keywords of what they were saying. It's like, oh no, we're not a pyramid scheme, we're fundraising. But for me, that screamed like, but how do you get your money in to get paid? What are you as a human being offering the company that's actually providing you your paycheck? There's a piece of the puzzle happening that I don't know and you don't know about. And so that's what we're trying to put in together. And so I'm just throw in. I'm honestly like, what time is it now? Now it's noon. I'm just like having lunch at work, probably on my mobile, doing my best of just, just throwing something out there because I'm not thinking of getting you out. I just want you to realize because I've seen other people actually being under the spell of how do you call this spokespeople.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
But I've never experienced that. So if I'm wrong, please let me know. But I've seen I've seen the days on somebody, and it sounded like that's what you were under. Am I wrong?
No, you're pretty right, honestly.
Okay. But again, saying here, I don't know if you're following here with me.
I'm
Um,
not exactly. I've been skipping because it's just a lot of stuff that I said.
I'm still you're being defensive. You're throwing a lot of keywords that your company does,
Very true.
but
Yes.
and I know those are not your words, so I'm not.
I remember. Okay, I remember one of the things that I said was that I was doing some research or on the spot, and I found that one of the people that was at the very top, probably the most famous person that we were talking about all the time, the pretty much the first guy that started this whole thing. He didn't have any Wikipedia articles of him. That was very bizarre at the first, but obviously I simply dismissed this. I simply dismissed the fact that there's little information about him or his life. And then right after that is when, yeah, you're saying you're posting the last link. You tell me I sound brainwashed,
Yeah.
and that the blog you mentioned is kind of a crazy one. Uh,
Okay, so this is me, like, I'm at the end of not my shift, but like I gotta go, and I'm struggling. I'm honestly struggling to work. I'm at the receptionist desk, uh, but I want to help you out, and I'm also deep in it because I'm finding a lot of weird links. But I want to find one that can speak the most to you, and this is I'm there. My post is saying this is gonna be the last link. Parenthesis, yes, this is a bit of a crazy blog because the thumbnail is there is the devil in a business suit.
it's
This
great.
blog is insane.
These types of weird websites really intrigue me. I've always been a fan of like internet stories or you know not like rarely known facts about things that people post in kind of a creepy way, right? And the site itself is great. The Devil Corp is a wonderful title, and the thumbnail just helps illustrate that it is like this cartoonishly evil type of thing, right? And I was like, this is interesting. I might as well read it because it sounds like something fun to read. It's definitely not going to apply to me, is what I thought, but it's going to be fun to read. Because all the previous links that you posted were like Reddit posts and comment sections and stuff like that, and
Like
I
normie shit.
yeah, I had a feeling that I was gonna. I knew what was gonna be in those pages. It was gonna be the same thing that we've been told at the company to disregard. People that they left the company because they couldn't handle it, and now they're angry that they didn't get what they were promised, and you just don't need to pay attention to those people, right?
Yeah.
So, but this one really caught my eye because I was like, okay, this is gonna be like I'm on my break. I'm just gonna take a moment to like read about this and laugh that I'm not part of these companies, right? Because, whatever. Then as I was reading it, things slowly started popping up. Phrases, keywords. There was a whole page about how the business works and the structure of it. And that's when I was like, okay, this is kind of freaking me out. I point out that a lot of these things are stuff that I have seen. I've seen these things. I've seen people talking about a lot of the things on this website. And the comments had names of people that were attached to the organization or potential, people that worked in the organization. And I recognized quite a few of them.
Yeah.
As I keep going, I find my manager's name in there. The other manager in my office is also there. People who I see every day at work, people who pay me, people who give me, stuff to inspire me and do the job out in the field every day. People who promise
that
me
are
stuff.
making good money through this.
Yeah, not only that, but people who've like done favors for me at the same time. People who've, helped me out. People who've, they seem like such nice people. They seem like such, enthusiastic, happy people. But then you see all the juxtaposition. You see all the things that this website is claiming, all the sources that it has, a huge list of sources. And then you start looking through the sources, and you cross-reference things. You cross-reference, again, the training program. You cross-reference names. You cross-reference how the system works, how they use it. And it was essentially, I like to, every time I talk about this moment, I like to see it as the Matrix kind of breaking down around me. And actually,
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
yeah, I actually say that. Because I was alone in a huge park, surrounded by strangers in a town that I had no business being in, on a business trip with people that I thought I could trust, but I wasn't so sure anymore. And that they got even stranger as it kept going. It got just stranger. I started feeling a little sick, frankly. I I really felt like I had been lied to for the better part of 2 months. As I was, processing all this information, I was the group that I was in, the business trip group. It was one supervisor who will call. TJ was one of the supervisors, and he was someone who was very close to the manager. He was someone who'd been in the business for over 2 years at this point, constantly moving. He was up in the UK to start with. Then he moved with the same company over to New Jersey, and then when he couldn't do anything there, he moved down to where we were. And he was someone who was very much attached to the business. There was one time where my dad called. My dad called me right in the middle of work one day, before we went out into the field. And he was crying, my dad, because he felt like I was disappearing. Because he felt like I didn't contact him, I didn't talk to him at all. And that the reason was always work. And he felt that work was somehow consuming me. And he really let this, he dropped this bomb on me. And it really took me out of surprise. And I remember TJ saying that it's a sacrifice that all of us have to do. That, we have to make them understand that what we're doing is for our own good. And that, the company's important. The work you do is important. And he was telling me this. And that was one of the first that was one of the aspects of him that made me realize how far gone he was. Then, during that day, I didn't reveal to him what I had found, but I started asking questions. I was asking him how long he'd been in the company. I was asking him, what's the proof that these people have money, or that they're actually not doing some kind of illegal business and stuff like that. And he was very dismissive. He claimed to see all. He was like, "Oh, they took me on this tour, or she showed me her house. She showed me her, $300,000 car. She showed me all the wine she's bought, all the Rolex watches and stuff." And he said, "I want that. I want that for myself. I want to be a rich person through my own work." And it was as if he had been completely taken over by these people. And what really cemented that was, as soon as I decided to tell him that I was done, that I told him essentially I wasn't feeling it. I really wasn't comfortable doing the stuff we did in terms of how we treated customers, because I essentially told him I don't like lying to people to get a sale or a donation. It makes me feel bad. It makes me feel uncomfortable. And on the surface, he was completely understanding. And he told me that, there's nothing wrong with that. We'll see what we can figure out at the end of the day so you can return home. And not 5 minutes later, the manager, who was back home at the time, called me asking what was going on. So clearly, as soon as I told TJ what my plan was, she went and she called me, telling me, asking me what I was doing and why that was the decision I was taking. So he was a lapdog for the manager. So much so that she was almost his watchdog as well.
Yeah, they're more interconnected than you think.
That's correct. Another part which was very much eye-opening was I revealed a lot of this information to my two other coworkers who were at this time below me. They were both trainees. I was a corporate trainer at the time. So I revealed this information to them, and one of them felt it immediately. They were, okay, this is real. I have had this feeling for a while, but this information that you've given me has, confirmed it. And the other person took a while to convince, but we were able to answer some of her questions, about where they get the money from, about why her name was on there. We showed her everything. Her picture was on there. All these terms that she knows. So she, at the end, was convinced. And all three of us were poised to return home. And as soon as I told my supervisor this, and I received the call, my manager was very nice. She was completely understanding, and she was, like, okay, that's fine. I get it. It wasn't for you. You were a great guy. I hope, good luck in your endeavors in life, right? That's how the call ended, and that's how I assumed it was going to end. Now, the first person I told, who was one of my coworkers, who wasn't my supervisor, she also got a call from my manager, who told her that I was lazy, that I was a terrible worker, that I didn't know what I was doing, and that I was not confident, and that I was a bad leader, and that she shouldn't follow what I was saying. She should stay with the company, and then she should just disregard what I'm saying because I am a terrible, terrible worker, and I left because I was weak. That's what she told me after she had gotten the call from the manager. So
exiling you as the outsider right away from everybody else.
Correct, because obviously she doesn't want to lose any more workers, because she knows that she either knows that I've figured out what's going on, or she has a feeling that I will contaminate other people with my thoughts and will get them to quit.
Yeah, she was doing damage control.
Correct. That whole day ended when myself and that first coworker ended up leaving. We drove almost all night to get home. The other person has to stay with the supervisor because she was doing a internship course in her college, and she needed to stay with her position until a certain date. And the manager threatened her, telling her that she would be fired if she left with me. So she had to stay with the supervisor and finish her time in the company before she was able to go, all the while knowing that what she was doing was a scam. And we tried to get her out. We tried to, make her leave early, but she took the chance and she said, look, I'm just going to deal with this. I'm just going to stay right now. I'm going to finish my internship course and then I'm leaving. And then, she thanked me. She thanked me for revealing this information to her because she was starting to get affected by it because she wasn't performing very well as well as I did. So a lot of this business is also just constant pressure. There's a pressure to perform, right? And you get commended very much when you do perform well. But when you don't, you see other people get commended and you feel like you're unworthy. You feel like you're somehow not doing correctly, or somehow you're not putting in enough energy or enthusiasm, right? They tell you to play the numbers.
It's not the system fault. It's yours.
But
just have to
exactly, the system works. We've proven it. We've proven it to you that the system works. So what are you doing wrong, right? You are not, you're not following the steps. You're not doing the essential, actions. You are at fault here, and you better change now, or you're never going to rise in the company. So that puts a lot of pressure on people, and she was starting to feel it. She was really being hit by this type of stuff. And I noticed that. And I'm particularly proud that I managed to, convince her, first of all, and way later, she managed to get out. And right now she's, living her own life. She's doing what she likes to. She's detached. She forgot about it in a way. So, yeah, it feels good to do that.
It's no, I'm so happy. I'm so happy of the ripple that I had on this, because I did not want to see you stuck in there at all.
Yeah, and frankly, it was, now that I think back, it was miserable. Every single day, it was miserable. I hated going out onto the field. I hated it. I hated talking to people every day because you dealt with some really, like, potentially dangerous people every day. It's not like a regular retail position where you get people coming into your store who might be annoying or might, be kind of bullies in some sense. No, that's nothing. You were going to people in their homes. If somebody felt like they were getting threatened, they might do something about that. And I had many situations where that was the case, where I felt for my safety. And I did it all because I really believed in the job. You know, I felt like it was worth it. I felt like there was something to get out of it. You know, this was all just a trial, a trial to survive, to keep going, to keep earning money.
But those are the words that you are using on my end. Sure. I've never really experienced that. I've had a shitty job that I didn't know about, and once I question about it, I'm like, all right, see ya. Some of them like being in a call center, calling a whole bunch of numbers that I don't know where they're coming from, having a script about some Microsoft convention event. Usually they say no and hang up on me, and sometimes they say yes, and then I realize that I don't know what I'm supposed to say after this. So, a lot of weird places. But hearing you talking about this, and you're using the words like you have goals and promises, but what I'm reading is just like they're giving you this bait to keep going, and you're just being manipulated into their own.
That's what it
plan.
was. That's exactly what it was.
But even now, you're still. I'm not saying that they're the wrong words, but you're still using the very positive vibes.
I'm using them because I want to drive home the point of how much it really meant to me at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm condemning this stuff, condemning all these things that these people did to me and did with me. But it was so effective because they just captivated you. It's frankly terrifying how they do that, and they do it so well. They've been doing it for 3 decades, completely untouched.
It is spooky, and of course, I'm not saying oh, you're so dumb for falling into it. It's even now I am amazed of. Again, I highly respect you, and I am amazed of how they got you in there.
It's all circumstance. It was my first job. I had no way to compare it to anything else. I was fresh out of college. I had never worked a day in my life, pretty much. And I was down to do anything, Work ethic has always been part of me and part of what has been taught to me. So I figured it was just a regular thing to do for your job, to risk yourself in some way. I thought it was normal.
No, I can totally see that. And again, this is me that I have a much bigger work history. And as soon as you started talking about some stuff, I'm just, no, that's not how employment works. People don't just give you employees so that they can work under you. That sounds way too good. Hence, it is very suspicious.
I had no reference to it, so I had no idea.
I'm so happy you're you're out of that. I'm so happy of how insane and this website is.
Yeah. It's a total trip, and it has a lot of great resources if anyone wants to find more about the business. There's a great documentary that's listed on the website called The Slave Circle. I highly, highly recommend it. It basically goes through the entirety of what the business is, how it's structured, how they catch you, and how they use the systems that you use on customers on yourself. The managers and the supervisors all use the same systems that they teach you to use on the customers on you, because they know it works, and they know that you're going to get invested into their narrative just as much as the customer is going to get invested into your narrative. It works. And they do this with every single person that comes in. They teach it to you. They teach you to lie. They teach you to exacerbate. They teach you to, to use narrative. They teach you to use drama, to use empathy, to get people to care about what you're talking about. And they do it themselves.
Perfect. Anything else you wanted to add on this?
I do have a couple of stories in terms of how certain things occurred within the business, and
Okay.
some experiences that I went through as well, which they did not even consider abnormal at the time that I was going through them.
Did you bring single-handedly the company down?
Did I? No, I definitely didn't, because
Okay.
I know this because one time I was working at my current job, the one that I like working at and that I'm actually valued in. I came across one of my old coworkers who was doing her speech in a corner right around my store, literally 20 feet from my store. So I came out and I was like, "Hey, crazy to see you here. How's the store doing? How are you guys doing?" And the way she behaved with me was eerie at best. She treated me like any other customer that she would have encountered at the time, not as someone who worked with her for 8 weeks every day,
Okay.
She was giving me the speech. She was dismissing my questions about the company or ignoring them and just going through. "Oh, hey, you know what we got right here? Oh, you want to help out? Stuff like that." Like it felt like there was no communicating with this person anymore.
No acknowledgement of the time, like each other. Say something.
I knew for a fact that this person was already wrapped around the finger of whoever was over her at the time, because they had already treated me like some sort of deserter or disappointment or subhuman almost. Like,
Exiled.
what is this guy doing? Like, this guy's coming up to me? Fuck this guy, Unbelievable.
Just to make sure.
Yeah.
So she ignored your existence, and you could not go through her, and you had to turn your back away.
Yeah, I was.
She was a lost cause.
Yeah, she started giving me the speech, and I was like, okay, I know what you're doing. And then she kept going, and I was just like, okay, bye. And I just, there's no phasing her.
Not too bad.
And I knew who this person was, and I knew that she was very much a lapdog of the manager, just as the other guy was. She was consistently being, pampered by the manager, always commended by her. They were buddy, and there was something else going on there that I wasn't privy to, but that definitely influenced her. Anyway, I wanted to tell another story. This was months after I had already left, and I was working at the same job that I still work at right now. And suddenly, out of the blue, one night, my supervisor, not the same guy, but the person who hired me, somebody who I had gotten very close to and would consider my best friend, or one of my best friends, during the time that I was working there. He originally was very dismissive about my leaving the company. When I told him why I was leaving, I revealed everything to him. I gave him the information, and he was unfazed as well. He was like, this is just people who couldn't handle it. They've left, and this sounds like conspiracy. This sounds like you're trying to give reasons that you just quit because you couldn't handle it. And I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand. They are using you. This guy was in New Jersey when they hired him. And he had to leave with the company. He had a position in Wall Street. He was being paid $75,000 a year on Wall Street. He was going to start working there. He went to work. The first day he went to work there. And the next day he went back to work with these people because they managed to captivate him that well. And he was the point is, he was a person who hired me, and he ended up staying with the company after I left. And we didn't speak for months. I went on with my life. I assumed he must have been still in there. I pretty much forgot about him. And then one day, months later, I receive a call from him. I was working at the time, so I couldn't pick it up. But then he left me a message, and all it said was, "You were right." So as soon as I read that, I felt a shot up my spine. I'm like, oh God, what the fuck have they done to this guy? What have they done?
What are you thinking? Like, is he like tied up in the back of a car? Like, you're right. This is the last message you hear from this guy.
Yeah, no, it was like that. It was like he just said you were right and nothing else. And I was like, oh God, what did they do? What did they do to this guy? So when I called him, he essentially told me this. He said that one day, after I left, he had already, had a team full of people. He was about to get promoted to assistant manager, which is a treasured position for anybody at the first start. They tell you if you get to assistant management, and man, you're making the big bucks once you're in there. He was about to get promoted. And one day he was in the field and he was performing well. And he decided to not drop by the office at the end of the day and instead just head home on his own without checking back. Something that we had done many, many times before. Him and I and other workers, we sometimes we would return the pads at the next day, because we would keep the iPads where we left, or we keep the papers and all the stuff that was in company property, and would return it the next day, no issue. We never got reprimanded by it, nothing. But then this specific night, the same manager that was over me, essentially told him that he fucked up, that they were going to take all the people under him away from him and give him to somebody else, that they were going to put him at the starting position again, and that he had to move to Atlanta to keep being part of the company. Just right out of the bat. They told him that. So essentially, probably a year's worth of work sent to the toilet because he decided to go home one day instead of not checking back to the office after he was done. This is the type of stuff that these people pull, and it's bullshit. They don't do that for that. It's a throwaway reason, because what they don't tell you when you go in is that, sure, you get you get a team of people under you, but if someone else gets it faster than you, if they get promoted faster than you to assistant management, that means that they get to open up their office, not you. So they take all your people and they put you under them now. And you got to start all over again, which is what happened to this TJ guy from London down to New Jersey and down to where we were 3 times over the course of 2 years. And he kept going. And he lost everything. My best friend, he lost everything. He was in a very dark place at the time. I even offered him to stay with me because I didn't know what he had. Because at the end, also, another thing was that he was under lease with the manager. The manager, himself, and 2 other workers were part of the same lease, the same apartment. So she wasn't going to let him stay in the apartment, considering that he was basically going to quit, and she wasn't going to let him in the apartment. So he had nowhere to go. He had no job, essentially no place to live, and didn't want to go back to New Jersey, because I cannot even imagine the shame of knowing that you have been essentially been lied to your face for 2 years, and that you left behind a good job, a good, a decent city, your family, to pursue this. Something which had at the end just taken everything from him. I cannot even imagine the mental anguish that this poor guy had to go through. And, the story has a happy ending. He picked himself up, and he's back in New Jersey, in his own business. He's his own boss, as far as I know. And we talk all the time now. It's like,
okay,
this, it's such a baffling, thing to come across. because you hear it all your life, and then you experience it, and then you get it. You have to go through it to really, really get it, to get just how bad some people have been fucked over by these people, and how often they just get away with it. How easy would it have been for that to happen to somebody else? What if they couldn't handle it? What if they just killed themselves? I'm getting morbid, but it's happened before. And it's just shocking to me that these people get away with it.
It is. I'm speechless because the one I have never experienced it at all. Nothing to say yet. I'm the one that created all of this, thankfully.
Yeah.
Because
in a way, yeah, you did.
In so many ways, I'm listening to this, and I'm not doing any like, oh, mightier than thou kind of stuff, but I'm just like, I don't know. Don't be afraid of normal jobs. Always question, because your own time is precious. How is a company making money out of your time? Always question what you are doing. And I don't know, see how it goes from there. But as you were getting so defensive, I had to realize what what I think is you, because we have been around each other's bubble for a year. What was you, and what was very much corporate talk that I was not having any of that, because that was not what
me.
You were going.
That was
No.
not me at all. Yeah, it wasn't. It was them funneling their propaganda through me.
Oh no, 100%. Because again, you're a creative person. You wanted to start working as a job in the meantime, and as you said, that was your first job. You had no experience. But yeah, that was just not you, man.
A funny thing to remember that happened when I joined my current job is that one of my coworkers, who doesn't work with me anymore, he just left. But he was a great guy, a great friend of mine. I was telling them about my experience in the corporate cult, and he told me, "Wait a second, I think I applied there."
Oh no.
And he recounted that pretty much along the same week that I was getting hired in that position, he was at the same company. He went to the same place. He told me the same address for it. He talked to the same person, the same manager, and he didn't pass the second interview.
Okay.
But I did. So it's those little things that it's like, well, if this random guy that I'm working with almost got pulled in, how many people have? How many people have had experience with this? Because it's a revolving door. You see people coming in and out, people getting hired, then getting fired, then new people coming in, suddenly weeks, a week or days from each other. Just so many people.
That's another good red flag. Sorry for cutting in. Another good red flag anytime is like, if there's a high turnover, why?
Yeah.
Or just be careful.
Yeah, and they also have a way of, excusing that. They say, well, not everyone can handle this, We hire as many as we can because we want to make sure that only the best stick around.
Oh, of course, they have an answer for that.
They have an answer for everything. They've been doing this for 30 years. They know how to do it.
Oh, no. Well, I was gonna say it's so evil, but it is a devil corp.
Exactly. It is one company, too. One company.
It's awful.
They mask it with a bunch of different LLCs and managers and company names and bullshit websites that are filled with the same shit. You have no idea how many requests for an interview I've received from these companies over the last year after I quit. At least 5 or 6 from random companies in the area that I'm at that are the same thing. Every single one. I check the website and it's the same thing. I go to Devil Corp, I type in their name and their picture comes up. It's the same thing.
So now that the mattress is broken, you see their name and you know right away
Right away
what
that
this
they're
is.
plugged. They're plugged, and that they don't give a shit about me. You know,
Oh shit.
it's really
Oh
really
man.
fascinating.
Well, at least you have this under your belt, and you're maybe you can shepherd any other lost souls away from it.
I've come across people on the street over here where I live, doing that, and I've haven't had the courage yet to, or the courage or the time to really have a conversation with them and give them my experience, you know? And I wish I
Pre-
could, because I see them all the time.
You just need to print some pamphlets. So make some pamphlets from your website of little parts that cut your eyes and just give that to them. Walk away.
Yeah, yeah, I really do. Because I see it all the time in grocery stores, in parks, in corners. How many neighborhoods have these people been on, knocked on the same doors hundreds of times? It's
It
crazy.
it has to be a regional thing because again, yes, you're more from right now. You're more from the states in the south. I'm from Canada. I never see those kind of things around here. So this is why maybe it's very not normalized in my perspective.
Oh no, it's
Though
it's everywhere here in the US. It is
ew,
everywhere. In
that
multiple states, multiple cities, hundreds of companies.
that is not okay. Always question where time and money is going. Is how I see it.
Yeah, and
Because
yeah, if you follow the money, it leads up to like 5 or 6 people.
no, exactly.
As much as I obviously attack these people, and have a lot of disdain for them and what they did to me, at the same time, I really value the experience that I went through in a strange way, because it really drove me through the shit. Like, that was probably the hardest job I'll ever do, considering that I would wake up every day at 7 a.m., go to work at 8:39, and work all day until like 10 at night, 6 days a week. And I did this for 8 weeks. Every single day was like it. We would work constantly. We would have to keep our posture. We would have to keep our, positive attitude the whole day with every single person. No matter if it was blistering 100 plus degrees or if it was in a downpour, and thunder, and you had actual risk of getting struck by lightning, like I did. You really went through the shit, and it trained me. It hardened me. It gave me a lot of skills that I still use in my job nowadays in terms of how I, you know, approach people or talk to people when they come into my store. And it has helped in my confidence in terms of, it's just, all the stuff that I dealt with. It makes me feel more confident that I can initiate conversation, that I can befriend people, that I, you know, be a more personable person, if that makes sense. It
It
it pushed me that way, and I'm thankful for that. I'm not thankful for the 70 plus hours a week I had to work for barely $300 a week.
it does make sense, but in a way, you don't need to go through pyramid
No,
scheme
no, definitely
boot
not.
camp
Absolutely
to
not.
be
Please
to
do not.
start into the workplace.
No, don't seek that. Don't seek these places and these people, because you will want to kill yourself.
But in a way, yes. Even though if in the end an experience ended up being a really bad, horrible one, if you got skills out of them, like bring them with
Yeah,
you.
that's really what you have to get out. I mean, sure, I suffered quite a bit, but I got something out of it. I got something out that I still use, you know? I can't say the same for people who've been stuck for years and have lost more than they will ever gain. But in my situation, I'm thankful for some things about it. I'm thankful that I survived it, at the very least. Because the company has gone under. They they were essentially ousted for what they were doing. Some people started suing, and the company fell apart. The managers got, axed, and they're pretty much, screwed over at this point.
Beautiful. Yes, that's important. I did wanted to know that, and let's mention that later. That's bonus at the end. Beautiful.